Welcome back. Today's story filled with drama and unexpected turns. Hit like, subscribe, and let's jump in.
You will have to prepare your own meal tonight. That was how my wife welcomed me when I arrived home from work on Saturday evening. Emma went into the living room, playing with her earring. "I'm going out dancing with friends," she said. I looked at her in bewilderment. She wore a short black dress with a plunging neckline supported by 4 spaghetti straps that crisscrossed over her shoulders. As she moved away from me, I couldn't help but notice how the folds of her skirt flapped about her thighs. Then I saw the exposed back, which confirmed that Emma was not wearing a bra. "You're going out dancing dressed like that? Why? What's wrong with what I'm wearing? It's very stylish." I could feel my wrath rising, but I knew I needed to be cautious what I said next if I wanted to reach her. "There's nothing wrong with your outfit, but you're showing a lot of skin, don't you think? You're going to attract the wrong kind of attention, especially from men." She gave a little snort. "If Mia and I dance with any men while we're out, I'm sure they'll be perfect gentlemen." "You can't be sure of that. For all you know, one of them could be the ring collector, and you sure don't want to attract his attention." The serial murderer who had been terrorizing the neighborhood was nicknamed the ring collector by the media. He had sexually abused and strangled 8 young women over the past year. The only indication the police had was that each victim was missing her rings when she was discovered, and it was speculated that the lunatic was amassing a horrific collection. Emma responded mockingly in a small girl's voice. "Ooh, Daddy, is the boogeyman going to get me?" Her voice reverted to its usual dismissive tone. "It's so pathetic that you're trying to control me with ghost stories." Before she could clarify, a vehicle horn honked out front. "I don't have time for this," she snapped. "MIA's here." "Don't wait up for me," she said, and she was gone. "God damn it," I yelled, standing alone in the living room, my hands clenched in hopeless rage. This kind of disrespect has recently become more common, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could stand it. I adored Emma, but our relationship looked to be on the decline for quite some time. What has happened to us? I wondered. How did things become this bad? We were madly in love when we married after college, and Emma was so supportive when I went to business school for my MBA, taking a secretarial job to support us. She helped me to complete my degree in 18 months. It had not been easy for Mom, and I would always be thankful for her sacrifice. Then, while I was looking for work, my father passed away, leaving his company to my brother Daniel and myself. Elite mold makers produced specialized plastic components for industrial applications. The firm had been in a gradual decline for some time, but Daniel and I believed we could turn it around. Daniel took over running operations, while I handled sales and general management. It's a niche company that relies on connections and performance. Slowly, Daniel and I worked to re-establish our name as a quality provider. She never said anything, but I could tell Emma was upset that I did not end up in the executive suite of a Fortune 500 business in a large city. Nonetheless, she tolerated my long hours and little compensation without complaint. However, when she was given the option to work in advertising, she leaped at the chance and quickly shown an affinity for the job. That was initially beneficial to us. Her increasing salary significantly improved our financial circumstances, and her developing self-confidence strengthened her attitude. However, over time, our relationship seemed to cool off. She spent more and more time with her new co-workers, particularly Charlotte, a divorcee who I believed was a detrimental influence. However, tonight's encounter demonstrated that Emma was unconcerned about my worries. Well, to hell with her, I thought. I'll be damned if I'm going to sit around home waiting for her to come prancing in who knows when. With that, I called my younger brother, Nathan. "Hey Nathan, are you doing anything tonight?" "Okay, well how about meeting me at Cornerstone Tavern tonight? Emma's gone out again, and I'd like some company." Cornerstone Tavern was close, and I liked going there since it wasn't too loud and they played jazz in the background. They also served fantastic burgers to go with the alcohol. When I went in, Nathan was there waiting for me, with a drink. "From the sound of your voice," he was grinning at me, "I figured you could use one. What's Emma done this time to get you so upset?" I still considered Nathan to be my little brother since he was a few years younger than me, but he had grown to be just as tall as me. I used to win all of our wrestling bouts as kids, but I doubt I could do it now. Now he was my wingman and confidant. I took a large swallow from the cup in front of me before looking at him. "What makes you think Emma's done something to upset me?" He shook his head knowingly. "It's always Emma lately. I don't know what's going on with you two, but that woman is definitely getting under your skin big time. Isn't that obvious?" When he did not respond, I groaned and shrugged my shoulders. Everything was fine until she went to work for Orion Marketing. She was excited about the opportunity, and things were really good between us for a while. But the more time she spent in that world and with those people, the worse things have become at home. It's like she doesn't have any respect for me anymore. Nothing I do is good enough for her, and she takes every opportunity to get away from me. Frankly, I'm starting to wonder why I married her. Nathan gazed at me, cupping both hands over his chest. I know exactly why you married her, bro. I shook my head with disdain. You always were a horn dog anyway. I'm not getting a lot of action in that area either these days. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Nathan turned and motioned to the waitress for another round. After she delivered it, he leaned towards me and said in a low tone, "Do you think Emma's running around on you?" I took another large swallow, and my face twisted into a grimace. That's exactly what I'm thinking. The only thing is I can't figure out if she's having an affair or just picking up random guys when she's out with that witch Mia. I could feel my wrath rising, so I took another gulp to calm myself. Looking back, things between us soured when she got that new job. Now she's constantly working late or coming into the office on weekends. That makes me worry whether she is having an affair with someone at work. But she also continues going out with Mia, and she refuses to tell me where they are or when they will return home. Last weekend, she didn't return until after I had gone to bed, but she insisted on taking a shower when she came home. She said she wanted to wash the smell of cigarette smoke off her, but it seemed like an excuse to me. Nathan took a thorough look at me. Are you two headed for divorce? I slapped my fist down on the table so hard that the beer cups jumped. Damn it. That's what's really getting to me. The disrespect is bad enough. I couldn't tolerate her cheating on me, but if I divorce her, we'll have to split all our assets, and she'll wind up with half my share of the business. Damn, Ryan, that really sucks, especially now that things are starting to pick up. The order you landed last week could really pay off for us big time. I know, bro, and the idea of her walking away with a big chunk of everything we've been working and slaving for really chaps my ass. By now, I was in full ramp mode, and as the evening progressed, I lost track of how many beers I had. It didn't seem like a lot, but I never got around to eating anything. At some time, I recall Nathan assisting me to my vehicle and taking me home. He half carried me to the bedroom and threw me on the bed. I kicked off my shoes, and that's all I remember. It was almost noon on Saturday when I finally woke up. Oh God, my head ached so much, and I had a horrible taste in my mouth. I stumbled to the restroom, poured a glass with water, and took a few aspirins. Then I dashed into the kitchen to prepare myself some breakfast before the booze burned a hole in my stomach. After finishing my meal, I contacted my brother. When Nathan heard my voice, he laughed. I was wondering if you were up yet, man. You really tied one on last night. Yeah, well thanks for getting me home safely last night. I hope I didn't do anything crazy. How much did I drink, anyway? I don't ever remember blacking out like that, even in college. He laughed again. It's all part of the service. Just remember that you owe me. Then his voice changed tones. So, what did Emma say when you finally got up? I sat up upright. Damn it, Nathan, I haven't seen her. She sure wasn't in bed when I woke up. I got up from the table and began to walk through the house while I talked to him just to make sure. I don't think she came home last night. She's definitely not here now, and her car is still parked in the garage. That witch must have stayed out all night. God damn it, I'm not going to tolerate this kind of disrespect. Hold on, big brother. She could have a good explanation. Come to think of it, she probably spent the night at MIA's place. Why don't you give a call over there? No. She's got a phone. Let her call me. I'm tired of having to track down my own wife. I know where you're coming from, bro, but don't make any decisions until you two have had a chance to talk it out. I hear you, but to be honest, I hope she doesn't show up anytime soon, because I'm so mad at her right now I don't know what I'd do. Anyway, thanks again for last night. Now let me go do some yard work. Maybe that will cool me off some. After hanging up, I changed into my work trousers and went to the garage to fetch the lawnmower. When I sat down to put on my work boots, I was startled to see that they were coated with muck. Where the hell did that come from? I inquired. I'm generally fairly good at cleaning up after myself. I like mowing the yard because it allows me to concentrate without being distracted, but this time, I couldn't stop thinking about Emma and how upset I was with the way she was behaving. This isn't just disrespect. It's downright contempt. I really don't care whether she's having an affair or not. I'm not going to stand for this kind of treatment from her. I completed the yard and checked my phone to see if she had phoned and I had missed it. No missed calls. No SMS messages. I watched a baseball game on television before going to the kitchen and making myself supper out of leftovers. After that, I went back to the TV to watch a movie I'd watched before, Good Men Battling Undead, plenty of violence. That matched my mood. The later it got, the angrier I became. Finally, I turned off the television and grabbed my phone. All right, what's your win? I contacted her, but all I received was a message saying the phone was out of service. She switched off her phone, so I couldn't contact her, quite ridiculous. I undressed and went to bed, but it took me long to fall asleep. In the morning, I awoke bewildered. My skin felt clammy, and my sheets were moist. Even worse, my mood was bleak and gloomy. I felt like I had been dreaming all night, and they were really frightening. I could not recall many specifics. All I knew was that I had been really upset with Emma. No, not rage. I felt hate. It was honestly a bit terrifying to recall how intense my feelings were. Even when I had coffee and breakfast, I couldn't get rid of the horrible memories of those nightmares, and I began to feel guilty. I tried contacting Emma again, but received the same out-of-service message. I phoned Mia, despite my displeasure. It was clear that I had woken her since it took her a few seconds to recognize who I was. Mia, is Emma there with you? No, she's not. Was she with you yesterday? No. I thought she went home. Is she not there? Mia, this is important. When was the last time you saw Emma? It was Friday night. We were out dancing at Pulse nightclub. I rolled my eyes at this. Pulse nightclub was an actual meat market. What time did you leave there? There was a pause. Well, I left sometime after midnight. Did Emma leave with you? A prolonged pause. Actually, I sort of met a guy I was interested in, but Emma was having a good time and wanted to stay. She told me she'd call an Uber when she was ready, so I left with the guy. So, you haven't seen or heard from her since? No, I haven't. Listen, you're starting to scare me, Ryan. You really haven't heard from her all weekend? Mia, I don't have time to talk now. I need to try to find my wife. I hung up and cursed before calling Daniel and telling him what Mia had said. Bro, that doesn't sound good. I think you ought to call the police and report her missing. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'll let you know what they have to say. This proved to be a complete waste of time. When I phoned police headquarters, the officer's first question was when I last saw Emma. When I informed him Friday night, he cut me off. Listen, buddy, you can't even file a missing persons report until she's been gone 3 days. Damn it, officer. I haven't seen or heard from her all weekend, and neither has her best friend. I'm afraid something may have happened to her. He responded, don't worry too much. I've seen the same thing dozens of times. The odds are you'll hear from her soon, and everything will be okay. Just give it a little more time. I hung up. Maybe he was correct, but I was not comforted. This wasn't like her. What if she has been in an accident? But if she was, wouldn't the physicians notify me? Still, I felt it wouldn't harm, so I contacted the local hospitals. Emma had not checked in at any of them, and there were no unknown female patients. Another dead end. I went out and got some food for myself, then rushed home to eat it in case Emma arrived. While I waited, I attempted to divert myself by watching TV, but I couldn't focus. I finally gave up and went to bed. In some respects, Sunday night was worse than Saturday. Again, I slept restlessly. Worse, I continued experiencing the same dream. I was lost, slogging through a dark wilderness while carrying a huge load. I was not furious. Instead, I felt hopelessness and despair. The last time I awoke, it was still dark outside, but I got up anyhow because I couldn't stand being so miserable. I had to eat breakfast and drink many cups of coffee before I began to feel better. At 7:30 a.m., I phoned Daniel. Listen, I'm going to be late this morning. I still haven't seen or heard from Emma. I'm going to check with her office when it opens just in case she shows up there. If she doesn't, I'm going to police headquarters and demand to see someone. Okay, I'll hold down the fort here. Good luck, bro, and keep the faith. A half hour later, I contacted Orion Marketing and spoke with Jade's assistant. When I initially heard about Jade, I was a bit envious that Emma had a male PA, but Emma laughed and told me I was being sexist. It wasn't until I met Jade at a corporate function that I understood Emma's joke. Jade was short for Francesca, and like her moniker, Jade was one of the least feminine ladies I'd ever met. She wasn't overweight, but she was towering and blocky, with a rather male appearance. She seemed like she could play linebacker for some college teams. She was also strong. The first time we shook hands, she offered me a masculine grasp that surprised me with its power. The second thing I noticed about Jade was her complete devotion to Emma. After seeing the two of them together a few times, I assumed Jade was homosexual and had a crush on my wife. I questioned Emma about it once, and she just chuckled. Of course, she's a lesbian, but it doesn't bother me. Actually, it makes her perfect for my PA, she'd do anything for me. She's more like a servant than an employee. Hearing Jade's contralto voice on the phone interrupted my reverie. Hi Jade, it's Ryan Duncan. Is Emma in the office yet? Hello, Mr. Duncan, it's good to hear your voice. No, your wife hasn't gotten in yet. Shall I have her call you when she arrives? Yes, please have her call first thing. Something in my voice must have sounded strange to Jade. Is everything okay, Mr. Duncan? To my dismay, I found myself telling Jade everything, how we clashed after Emma left on Friday and how I hadn't seen or heard from her all weekend. Jade listened silently until I was done. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, and her tone was concerned. I'm so sorry to hear that, her voice lowered even more. I can't talk about this now, but there are things going on around here that aren't right. If I were you, I'd go see Ethan Cole and find out what's going on with Emma. Suddenly, her voice returned to its original tone and loudness. Yes, sir, that's right. Mr. Browder will be in the office later this morning. Goodbye now. I sat there, clutching the dead phone and felt my blood pressure rise. I hadn't liked Ethan Cole from the first time I met him. He was one of those smooth, good-looking men who appeared overconfident. He never missed an occasion to boast about his advertising business or himself, and he was not hesitant about criticizing others in the process. Maybe such attributes made him an excellent businessman, but in my opinion, they made him an insecure, ugly person. So, what was Jade hinting at when she stated I should focus my queries to Darren? I had a sneaky hunch that I knew, and I planned to face him as soon as possible. But first, I needed to travel to the police headquarters. The sergeant at the front desk wasn't very helpful, but I think I made enough of a fuss that a lady came out to see me. I'm Detective Lily Hudson, she introduced herself when the sergeant explained my situation. She seemed young and inexperienced in my perspective, but she was at least eager to listen. So I followed her back to her desk. I repeated my narrative, but she didn't appear to respond when I showed her a photo of Emma. She sat back in her chair and covered her lips, yawning. That was the last straw for me. Look, if you were out partying too hard over the weekend, how about letting me talk to someone who gives a damn? She swayed forward, her eyes flashing. If you think I don't care, Mr. Duncan, you're badly mistaken. I wouldn't have taken this job if I didn't care deeply. And for your information, the reason I was yawning is I was on duty the whole weekend, and I spent most of last night trying to track down a mentally ill young woman who wandered away from her group home. So back off and tell me again why you think your wife isn't just another runaway spouse who's wasting police time. I felt terrible after that, but I got up and attempted to explain why I was so worried about Emma's absence. She's gone out with her girlfriend before, but she doesn't stay out all night, and she's never been gone for a whole weekend. How often does she go out without you? I squirmed, embarrassed. Lately, it's been almost every weekend. Emma jotted something down on the paper in front of her before taking a close look at me. So, how would you describe your relationship with your wife? I glanced down at the desk and sighed. Look, I'm not going to lie to you, it's been a little rocky lately. I was staring at her. It's almost like she's lost respect for me, you know. Do you two ever fight? Yeah, we've had some pretty heated arguments from time to time. Did you ever hit her? I was astonished. God no. I would never do that. She waited for me to continue, but I could not think of anything more to say. Finally, she sighed. All right, Mr. Duncan, you'll add your wife to our missing persons list and well circulate her photo to our street patrol. If we find anything, we'll call you. I hadn't intended to say anything, but it simply came out of my lips. You don't think there's any chance she ran into this ring collector guy, do you? Look, I know you're worried, but you can drive yourself crazy imagining unlikely scenarios. In the great majority of situations like this, the missing spouse just decided they wanted some time alone. After a while, they realize they can't work out their problems long distance, and they come home. My advice for you is to stop worrying and go back to work. Let the professionals find your wife and bring her home. I nodded, grudgingly. Emma reached inside a little purse and retrieved a card. Hey, race my name and number. If she comes home or you hear from her, call me anytime, day or night. She gave me the card. We really do care, even if it may not seem that way to you. I accepted the card and nodded awkwardly. All right, Detective Marshall, thanks. After I left, I contacted Nathan to let him know what I was doing and then went directly to Orion Marketing. I had my doubts about Ethan Cole already, and Jade's cryptic remarks fueled my desire to confront him even more. The receptionist allowed me in because she knew me, and as I passed by Emma's office, I halted to raise my eyebrows at Jade in silent inquiry. She shook her head negatively. All right, I murmured softly, then it's time I have it out with Browder. She grabbed and gripped my hand. Good luck, she said quietly. I proceeded down the hall to Browder's office while stroking my fingers. Damn, that woman is strong. Oh, Mr. Duncan, Browder's secretary exclaimed when I walked up to her desk. Is he in? When I inquired, she scowled. Yes, but he's busy right now, and wait, you can't go in there. But ID already passed past her, and when I saw Browder on the phone, he talked quickly into the telephone. He'll have to call you back. After hanging up, he stood with a fake grin on his face. Well, Ryan, this is a nice surprise. Come in and have a seat. He directed me to the large sofa on one side of his office. I sat down and stared at him closely. This is not a social call, Browder. I want to know what is going on between you and my wife. For a brief second, I thought I saw his eyes falter, but his grin remained glued on his face. Ah, Emma, he remarked, what a contribution she's made to the company. She brings a genuine desire for every challenge that working here gives. I've seen her take a major issue and work it out to a gratifying finish time and time again. In fact, I had the pleasure of administering her performance review sitting on that sofa last week. I can promise you that she was completely fulfilling in every manner. He offered me a smirk. I'm very grateful to have her working under me. As I pushed down on the couch to stand up and confront him, my fingers slid between the cushions of the sofa and I touched something unexpected. When I pulled it out to see what it was, I found myself holding a flimsy pair of panties. The more I listened and watched that gloating smile, the angrier I became. I glanced at them again and gasped, knowing they were from the pair I gave Emma for Valentine's Day last year. Browder rushed over and seized them from my hands. Well, well, they said. Looks like the cleaning crew has been enjoying their work more than I realized. He quipped. Just suddenly, the door of his office swung open, and a uniformed guard entered. Ah, you're just in time, Browder said, nodding to the guy. Mr. Duncan was just leaving. Not so fast, Browder. You and I have much more to speak about. Sorry, Ryan, but I'm afraid you've already taken up too much of my schedule. He pointed to the guard. Please accompany Mr. Duncan, go to the exit. As I walked out of his office, I returned my gaze to Browder. The guard came to my side and motioned toward the door, and I began to object, but then decided against it. It's not over. Definitely not. I didn't see Jade when I walked down the hall, which was probably a good thing because I was still fuming when I got out to my car. After making sure I hadn't missed a call from Emma, I pulled out the card that Detective Lily Hudson had given me and called her number. When she answered, I was sputtering with rage. Listen, you need to go over to Orion Marketing and question Ethan Cole. He's having an affair with my wife, and he may have information regarding her abduction. She exhaled. So you're going back to work and letting the cops handle things? I moved uneasily. Well, no, but I've had my reservations about that guy for a long. Anyway, I wanted to check whether Emma had gone to work this morning. Aha. So your wife's boss confesses to having an affair with your wife? Not precisely, but he was ridiculing me for it. And, anyhow, I have proof, evidence. I informed her about Emma's panties tucked in Browder's couch. Do you have the panties with you? No. Browder pulled them from my grasp, but I'll wager they're still there. I overheard her take a big breath. Okay, Mr. Duncan, I want you to listen closely and do precisely what I say. Sure, anything. I want you to get into your vehicle and go directly to your workplace. When you get there, I want you to focus on your regular job and cease playing detective. Do you understand? But how about Browder? Well, speak to him and the other folks whose names you provided me. However, if you continue to interfere, you are more likely to obstruct our progress than to benefit it. Do you comprehend what I am saying? I was the one who sighed. Yes, teacher. I understand. It'll be fine. She giggled at my tone. Good guy. Now, behave yourself. She hung up. When I arrived at the workplace, I had to tell Nathan what had transpired, and his look was unmistakable as I recalled my chat with Browder. I'm glad you were there instead of me. If he did it to me, I would have decked him. Yeah, but Detective Marshall is already upset out with me. There's no knowing what she'll do if I hit Browder. I tried to focus on work for the rest of the day, but it wasn't easy. My blood pressure would rise when I started thinking about Browder and his suggestive remarks about Emma, and when I started thinking about Emma, I'd get even angrier. As a result, I ended up working late to try to catch up, and on the way home, I stopped at a fast food restaurant and picked up something for Dee. The greasy food must have upset my stomach, because I tossed and turned all night. I dozed for a while and then woke up and rolled over, and every time I did, I remembered what I'd been dreaming about. This time, my dreams were filled with Emma and Browder, sometimes belittling me, sometimes laughing at me, and once, Detective Marshall even showed up and began lecturing me. When my alarm went off at 6 a.m., I was pleased to get out of bed. I had just finished my breakfast when the doorbell rang. It's Emma, I thought, and hurried to the door. But when I answered it, I was astonished to find Detective Marshall standing there with a grave face. Mr. Duncan, Ryan, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I believe we discovered your wife's corpse. I lurched backward, my voice seizing in my throat. The prospect had always been in the back of my mind, but I'd been so furious with Emma that I never imagined we wouldn't get the opportunity to talk things out. What happened? Her face was a mask. Let's go sit down. She moved past me into the living room, and I followed blindly. When we were both sat, the mask came off, revealing compassion. I'm so sorry, but it appears that she was assaulted and then strangled by the ring collector. I gave a gasp. It sure seems like it. The MO was identical, and her rings are gone. I shivered, and pain rushed over me, mingled with rage at the lunatic who'd done this awful thing, and anger at myself for the horrible things I'd thought about Emma before I realized what had happened to her. Where was she? I asked, my voice barely audible. We found the body in Cedarwood Reserve, she said. A cold struck me. I used to play in those woods as a child, and I knew the area like it was my own backyard. I stared at the floor so Emma wouldn't see the unease in my eyes. Ryan, she stopped my thoughts. I really hate to do this, but we need you to come down to the morgue and identify the body. I glanced up fast. So there's a possibility it's not her. She reached out and grabbed my hand. Don't get your hopes up. I'm afraid this is just a formality. There was nothing I could say to that. She offered me a ride, and I decided to take her up on it, even though I wasn't sure I could drive. I'd never been in a morgue before. It looked and smelled like a hospital, except that no one gets better and goes home, I thought morbidly. We went into the refrigeration room. Emma carefully checked a list, then opened a square metal door in a wall full of them, like opening a safe deposit box. She pulled the sliding table out and carefully unzipped the thick black plastic bag, which I forced myself to look at. The last time I saw Emma, her face was twisted in contempt, but now it was relaxed, and it was easy to remember how beautiful I thought she was when we got married. The only difference was that her cheeks, lips, and entire face were a sickly off-white, the color of melted wax. I glanced aside, not wanting to recall her in that manner. Out in the waiting area, the detective shocked me. While we're here, there's something else you need to do. I glanced up. I need to get a DNA swab from you. What? I do not comprehend. It is routine. We need your DNA for the autopsy so that we can rule out any of yours that may be found within her. Okay, I guess if it'll help find the monster who did this. She quickly ran the swab on the inside of my cheek, and we were on our way back to my home. Nothing along the route seemed familiar, so I turned to her. I guess I need to get started on the funeral arrangements. Her emotion spread over her face. It will take a while until the corpse is liberated. They must do the autopsy, which will subsequently be held as evidence. They will notify you. I couldn't think of anything to say. When she dropped me off at home, she made a point of looking me in the eye. We are going to locate the individual who did this, Ryan. He will not get away. I merely nodded, and when she went, I contacted Daniel to tell him what had occurred. Oh, damn it, Ryan. I cannot believe this. It's like a nightmare. Listen and remain where you are. I'm coming straight over to see you. No, Daniel, do not do it. I urgently need you to contact everyone who needs to know and deliver the horrible news. I don't believe I can take that right now. Furthermore, someone needs to keep the firm functioning. Just give me a little time alone. Despite his protests, I persuaded him to do what I asked. After he hung up, I decided I needed to make a call that Daniel wouldn't consider. When I told Jade the bad news, I expected her to cry or worse, but instead I heard her take a sharp breath and then silence. Just as I was about to inquire whether she was okay, she burst into tears. "Oh, Ryan, I'm going to miss her so much." After we hung up, I shook my head. I knew Jade was unusual, but I didn't expect her to respond like that. She then inquired about me and how I was doing. I thanked her for her care and promised to remain in contact. "Oh well, people process grief in different ways," I said. Speaking of processing, I attempted to study my own thoughts. The shock was beginning to wear off, to be replaced with what? I hadn't even wept, I realized, and the more I examined my emotions, the more I discovered I was still furious. Well, of course, you're angry, I reflected. You're angry at the maniac who assaulted and murdered your wife, but that wasn't all. When I returned to our bedroom and glanced at Emma's closet, which was full of her things, it dawned on me. I'm still mad at Emma. Maybe I'm furious because she left me alone, even if it wasn't her decision, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was still angry for the way she treated me. Disrespect was disrespect, and if she were still alive, she'd probably treat me the same way. I felt the heat rise in my body and knew I'd struck on the raw nerve of reality. Her death hadn't altered the way I felt, and I tried to produce pity by seeing her corpse laying in the woods, but I couldn't. I will simply have to wait. Perhaps I'll feel differently afterward. The remainder of the day went in a blur. I strolled about the house, doing minor tasks to keep myself busy. I spotted some items on the bookshelf that Emma had bought, little knickknacks that she thought were amusing, and I detested them, so I tossed them away. I rushed to my computer to check my email, only to shut it off when I saw the scores of queries and messages of condolence. I can't deal with that now. As it became dark, I closed all the draperies and turned off all the exterior lights, which I'd read was a sign that the family didn't want guests. I knew I didn't want them, not then, and maybe never. When I finally got ready for bed that night, it felt weird coming into the bedroom knowing that Emma would never be there again. I mentally shook my head. Ryan, you're so screwed up. Strangely, I slept well that night, unaffected by frightening nightmares. Maybe you're still in shock, I reasoned. I got up and had cereal and coffee for breakfast, then sat around trying to decide what to do next. Should I go into the office? Should I start answering all those emails? Should I just stay hidden for the day? Before I could drive myself insane trying to figure it out, I decided to turn my phone back on. I hadn't wanted to talk to anyone yesterday, and as expected, my voicemail box was full. I quickly scanned the list of callers and then jumped when my phone started to probably more condolences, I thought, but before I pushed the ignore button, I saw the call was from Detective Lily Hudson. I better answer. Ryan, she spoke in my ear. I wanted to let you know right away, we caught the ring collector. What? You are fooling me. What happened? The scumbag attempted to abduct another lady, but this time someone saw the incident and contacted 911. We caught him before he could hurt her. Her voice became less excited. Look, I know it's not much consolation to you with Emma gone, but at least we'll be able to get justice for her. No, that's okay. It's terrific that you've got him. I wish it had happened sooner, but at the very least, he will not go unpunished, and he will not be able to harm anybody else. Thank God. I stopped to think for a minute. So, what comes next? Emma is being interrogated right now, and they say he's giving a complete confession. It will very likely be covered extensively in the media, but please contact me if you have any specific questions. Okay, Nora, and thanks for calling. I'm still having a hard time processing everything that's happened, but this really helps. The following few days were schizophrenic, trying to deal with Emma's death on the one hand and feeling relieved they'd caught the monster who'd hurt her and so many others. But the calm after the storm was not to last. I was working in my office when there was a knock at my door. Before I could get up, the door opened, and Emma walked in. She wasn't smiling. I have some bad news, Ryan. I gazed up at her with a sinking sensation in my chest. We've been over your wife's murder with the ring collector. He says he didn't do it. I stared at her. Emma? Lying. Of course he did. Her expression did not alter. He confessed to all of the other murders. Ryan gave us information that we did not share with the public. but he swears he did not kill Emma. But that's not all, she said, her tone serious. We discovered his collection of rings and accounted for them all. He didn't have Emma's. I shook my head, bewildered. I don't understand. There's bad news, Ryan. We performed a DNA test on him and matched it to the semen left in Emma's corpse. It did not match. But that's not the end of it, we found a match. I froze. Yours. No, it is impossible, I shook my head in amazement. Ryan, it matched your DNA. My stomach dropped, and everything around me began to whirl. The world tilted, and my knees felt weak under me. You've got to be kidding me, I said under my breath. Her eyes remained steady as she talked. Ryan, you're under arrest for the murder of your wife, Emma Duncan. I turned around frantically and found the muscular officer standing outside my door. Don't make this any more difficult than it has to be, Ryan, she told him. I gave a longing groan and grudgingly extended out my hands for her to cuff me. Just then, Nathan dashed towards the doorway. What the hell's going on? Ryan, he yelled. I don't understand either, Nathan, but I need you to get me a lawyer, okay? He nodded, his eyes widening in astonishment. Yes, I received a referral from the business that handles our corporate work. His name is Maxwell. They claimed he's quite experienced and has represented a lot of criminals, well, you know, a lot of people in your position. I dismissed the uneasiness. All I care about is if he can help me get out of here long enough that I can figure out what the hell is going on. After being indicted by a grand jury and arraigned before a judge, where I pleaded not guilty, I spent the next few weeks in the city jail, slowly going insane while trying to figure out what had happened to me. The hours seemed to go on indefinitely at times, and the days seemed to fly by at others. My attorney, Max Maxwell, was not very encouraging. He certainly knew his way around the criminal justice system, but he kept asking me to strike a plea bargain with the district attorney, which brought us to my bail hearing. I felt that if I could just get out of that cell, I'd be able to figure out who set me up and how. The DA didn't want me out on bond at all, citing the awful nature of my crime and calling me a flight risk. Maxwell pointed out that I had no past criminal history and significant links to the city. Southwest, the court made a compromise and set bail at $1 million. Max, where the heck am I going to obtain $1.2 million? You just need to come up with 10%. $120,000. You may set up your company for it. Following the hearing, I had the opportunity to huddle with Nathan. I hate to ask, but do you think we can do it? Half of the company is yours. He did not hesitate. No problem, dude. I know you're not going to go to Mexico with me. Besides, he smirked, if you do, you know I will come after you. So, there I was that afternoon, sitting in my house, free on bail, desperately trying to imagine who could have killed Emma and why. Max Maxwell had promised to comb through the evidence the state had against me to see if there were any chinks in the armor, but I figured that wasn't going to solve my problem. I had to believe that Ethan Cole was somehow involved, so I tried to figure it out. He and Emma were having an affair, which I was certain of. If Emma grew too attached and began putting demands on Browder, might he have murdered her to get her off his back? Or what if Emma began blackmailing him? This may have increased the stakes for him much more. Who else? I thought back to the night Emma disappeared. She and Mia had gone dancing at that club. Mia told me she had hooked up with some guy and left Emma behind. But what if Mia hadn't left? What if she and the other guy decided to have a threesome with Emma and the whole thing went wrong? Maybe, but it sounded a little far-fetched. Could Jade have met Emma that night and tried to persuade her to leave me? Could she have professed her love for Emma and been repulsed? God knows Jade was strong enough to strangle Emma if she wanted to. Could she have been the murderer? But that's insane. Emma was sexually molested, the murderer had to be a guy, didn't he? But no matter what bizarre scenario I envisioned, it always came back to the reality that the coroner discovered my sperm in Emma. I didn't want to confront it, but maybe I was the murderer. Could I have done it and forgotten, or shut it out? As I reflected on that night, I began to recall things I didn't like. There's no doubt that I got so drunk on Friday that I blacked out, but could I have woken up in the middle of the night, gone out, and done something so horrible that I didn't want to remember it? But how could I commit something so horrible and then quietly conduct yard work on Saturday? Was I a cold-blooded monster? Oh, that reminds me, why were my work boots so dirty when I went out to mow the lawn? I'm usually cautious to clean up after myself. What if Emma came home that night and I became enraged? Could I have beaten, strangled, and taken her corpse out to Cedarwood Reserve? The concept made me ill. Then I recalled my dreams, the horrible fury I'd felt against Emma, followed by those gloomy images of dark forests and melancholy, but they were simply my response to Emma being out all night, weren't they? You've got to stop thinking like this, my mind was telling you. You need to get out of the house and away from all these reminders of Emma. I looked at the wall clock and saw it was after 5, so I contacted Nathan. Hey, bro, how about we meet over at Cornerstone Tavern? I need someone to assist me make sense of what's going on. He agreed and was seated in a booth in the rear with a drink for me when I went in. While we drank on the first round, he brought me up to speed on what was going on in the company. Then, when he bought us a second round, he pushed me to speak about what was on my mind. I've been trying to come up with an explanation for what happened to Emma. I told him about all my wild theories and crazy scenarios, none of which explained why my DNA was the only one they'd found. Someone else could have done it, I said. Nathan attempted to encourage me. I've been thinking about it, Ryan. Perhaps the lab people made a mistake. Perhaps they discovered your juice leftover from the last time you and Emma did it. I bet they found it and didn't bother looking any further. I don't know, Nathan. That seems implausible, and I'm not sure how I'd prove it anyhow. I shook my head, and the room whirled briefly. Damn, how many beers did I have? This is just my second, right? Now I can't remember, he remarked, grinning. I massaged my eyes while Nathan peered at me. Are you okay, Ryan? Sure. I am fine. The drink seemed to be creeping up on me. Maybe it's because I was dry the whole time I was in prison. Just then, my mobile phone rang, and as I focused on the screen, I realized it was Max Maxwell, my lawyer, calling. Hey, Nathan, I've had to take this. It's my lawyer. I rose up and swayed a bit as I went out through the back door to hear better, leaning against the wall to keep myself stable. Hey, Max, what's up? He paused briefly, and I worried whether I sounded inebriated. Ryan, he began, his voice tense, I just learned something that may help our case. I stood up, and the faint dizziness subsided for a time. Are you aware of the DNA test that the police conducted? How do I forget? So, guess what? They merely analyzed a little portion of the DNA since that is often all they need to discover a match. This is what they did with Emma. The DNA and semen matched yours, therefore that was sufficient. But they continued moving, so I attempted to brace myself more firmly against the wall. Okay, Max, but how does this benefit me? What if the killer's DNA is virtually similar to yours? My mind was racing immediately. You mean I have a clone out there? Or a wicked twin? Have you been drinking, Ryan? This is no joke. Listen to what I'm saying. I tried to think, but nothing occurred. The door opened, and Nathan emerged. There you are, bro, he said. You better let me help you. He grabbed the phone from me and wrapped my arm over his shoulder, and I went out. My head ached like hell, and there was a bitter taste in my mouth. When I awoke, I bumped against the tree behind me. Oh well, looks like that dose of rye I gave you is wearing off faster than the first one, Nathan said. The last time, I was afraid I'd killed you, so I cut way back. He shrugged his shoulders. Actually, I'd have preferred it if you'd kept sleeping, but oh well. I shook my head to clear it and attempted to rise, only to find I was seated on the ground, bound to the tree behind me. What the hell is going on, Nathan? Help me get free. I don't think so, bro, he responded, his voice chilly. I went through a lot of trouble to get you here. I don't understand what's happening. He came up to stand in front of me, a scowl on his face. So, this is what's going on. You're filled with regret for what you did to Emma. So you went out to the woods and murdered her. You know they're going to condemn you, so there's only one way out. He pulled a gun from his pocket. You're going to take this gun, he said, holding up an automatic in his gloved hand, and blow your brains out. It does not get any easier than that. I looked at him in disbelief. You were the one who killed Emma. He smiled. Bro, I've wanted a piece of your wife's gorgeous ass for a long time. I've been following her to that club, and I saw how gorgeous she looked while dancing. So, when you complained to me on Friday about her going out with her 304 friend, Mia, I knew just where they'd be. Then it was easy to drug you, take your miserable ass home, put on your work boots, and go to Pulse nightclub. When I arrived, Mia was just leaving with a sex hound. That left the door open for me to approach your devoted wife. I threatened to inform you about her cheating and get her out of the vehicle. With one love tap, she was out like a light. When I got her out in the woods, I figured if she wanted to spread it about, there was no reason I couldn't have a bit too. Bro, you should have seen the witch's panties. She was undoubtedly going to be laid. So I helped myself, and everything was good. Let me inform you. But then she woke up and began screaming. I couldn't have that, so I shut her up for good. I gasped in terror. He smiled broadly. The truth is, I knew this was going to happen all along. That's why I planned everything so you'd be the one to take the fall. It seems that I performed a nice job as well. But you helped me. You promised to put up a plan to raise bail. Why not? I wanted everyone to know how faithful a brother I was. Besides, he winked, I knew you wouldn't go anywhere. I was amazed by the shift I was seeing and appalled by the narrative he told me. As Nathan continued to grin, I felt a sense of overwhelming disbelief and horror. Everything he was saying was like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. Every word he said made my blood run cold. The man I'd trusted, my own brother, was the monster who had killed Emma. But there was still a part of me that was in denial, struggling to make sense of everything. I was anxiously trying to find a way out of this predicament. Listen, Nathan, help me remove these straps, and we'll work it out. You understand that the suicide concept will not persuade anybody. I can't shoot myself while tied up like this. No, you can't, he said mockingly, but I can do it for you. No, Ryan, it will be clear what occurred. He smirked, and I saw a cold, calculating glint in his eyes as he said, I've got it all figured out. After I put a bullet through your temple, you'll just unwind all of this strapping so they don't notice any scars on your body, then place the pistol in your hand and fire a second shot out in the distance. They'll discover you holding the rifle with powder burns on your fingers. With all of that proof, I doubt they'll question why you didn't leave a letter. His expression was stern enough to make me shiver. That's enough talking, bro. It's time to finish this. Wait, Nathan, at least tell me why, I said, my voice trembling. Why do you even have to ask? I've spent my whole life as the younger brother, the afterthought, the second best. You were Dad's favorite. I was the disappointment. You were the great quarterback, and I was on the second team. You earned your MBA, I had to settle for technical school. Now he was pacing back and forth, his rage increasing with each syllable. I thought maybe things would get better once I got out of school, but if anything, they got worse when Dad left the business to us. Mr. I've got my MBA became the president, and I had to settle for working in the plant. Nathan, you're vice president of operations. Shut up. He exclaimed. Everybody knows who was in charge, and it wasn't me. His voice became low and unpleasant. And when it came to women, you always had your pick. And who did you choose to marry? Just the hottest girl in the school. When you'd bring her around for the holidays, I used to go to bed and beat off thinking about her. Why couldn't I have someone like that? Why did you have to suck up all the attention, all the recognition? He shook his head, as if to dismiss an unpleasant notion, but then his wrath flared up again. But all that changes tonight, bro, you're going to become a memory. But don't worry. They won't forget you. They'll remember you as the piece of shit who assaulted and murdered his hot wife when he found out what a cheating woman she was. They won't know whether to laugh or cry when they think about you. And he'll be the only one who knows the truth. I was dumbfounded. My body felt chilly, and my hands trembled as I sat there, bound to the tree and helpless to flee. The whole scene, this horror, seemed preposterous. But here he was, my own brother, ready to ruin me and blame everything on me. Then, as I struggled against my shackles, a voice broke through the tension. Police department. Drop your gun. We both glanced up, amazed. From behind a huge maple tree, the thin form of Lily Hudson emerged, her Glock pointed at Nathan's chest. To my surprise, Nathan's voice altered dramatically. No, detective, you've got it all wrong. I followed Ryan out here and discovered he really was the killer. He came here to destroy some evidence, and I captured him. I was just about to call you guys, Emma said evenly, her voice steady and controlled. Jenkins, was the voice recorder on your body cam working? A uniformed officer emerged from behind another big tree. Yes, ma'am. I got every word of it, the young man said. Emma looked back at Nathan. Nathan Duncan, you're under arrest for sexual assault and murder. Now drop that gun and put your hands behind your head. Okay, you win, Nathan muttered, his voice weakened. He began to raise his hands, but suddenly, without abruptly, he raced at me, falling to one knee and shooting at the police officer. The officer fell, and as Nathan turned toward Emma, I bent my knees and swung out with both feet, hitting him on his hip. He lost his equilibrium and collapsed on the ground, shouting angrily. He sat up and raised the pistol toward me, but before he could squeeze the trigger, a shot rang out. It struck him in the back, knocking him to one side. He gasped, shuddered, and then lay still. Emma rushed over, her pistol still pointed at Nathan the whole time. As soon as she approached him, she prodded him in the back with her foot. When he didn't move, she stomped on the wrist of his gun hand, pinning it to the ground. He still didn't move, so she went down, gently removed the rifle from his fingers, and then approached me. "Are you okay?" she questioned, breathless. "I think so," I answered softly, still reeling from what had just transpired. Emma gave me Nathan's pistol. "Keep an eye on him. I need to go help Jenkins." She vanished into the darkness, leaving me with a peculiar spectrum of feelings. I sat there, staring at Nathan's motionless corpse, the weight of what had just transpired bearing down on me. The sound of footsteps caused me to glance up. Jenkins, accompanied by Emma, approached me. "Damn, I feel like I've been kicked by a mule," Jenkins sighed, his smile one of relief rather than comedy. "Just think how you'd feel if you hadn't been wearing your vest," Emma laughed, before phoning for help on her radio. When they checked that help was on the way, she approached and began untying the straps that held me to the tree. "I really didn't think he'd resist," she continued, her voice trembling slightly from adrenaline. "That was quick thinking, the way you kicked him. I was simply reacting. I didn't have time to think. Then it hit me. How did you come to locate us here?" Emma grinned. "I've been keeping an eye on you ever since you got out on bail." "Ah, so you really thought I'd done it?" The grin broadened. "No. I was quite certain you weren't guilty. I've met wife murderers before, but you didn't behave like one. Even when we obtained the DNA match, I had reservations." I exhaled, relieved but yet exhausted, my thoughts whirling from what had transpired. "Hey," I smacked my forehead. "You need to speak with Max, my lawyer. He discovered that something was amiss with your DNA test." Emma shrugged sheepishly. "I apologize for that. When the match came back positive, we never considered the potential that your sibling may have almost similar DNA." I glanced back at Nathan's corpse laying crumpled on the earth, and it felt appropriate. Even in the end, he was only an afterthought. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stories.